Let's talk more about free will. You ready for this, JMike?
Sure.
Let's go to Alan, no pronouns given in Texas. You say that we do have free will. Well, cool. This is a good chance. You're talking with SR and JMike. We don't think we have free will. Tell us why you feel differently.
Well, why you tell me why you don't think you have free will? You have mind.
There's no demonstration of it. There's no demonstration of free will. Your turn.
I gave an argument at the beginning that it's not even an option. If you explain why you choose A over B, the explanation will appeal to antecedent factors that will determine the outcome. And if there's no explanation, it's going to be indeterminate. So I don't really see where the free will fits in. I mean, I guess you could make a case in it being random, but then whatever you will isn't going to come true because it's random, right? So, so it's very likely that you don't get the thing that you will.
Two different options for you, Alan. Pick whichever one you like better.
Okay, I'm confused. Let me see if I understand. My concept of free will is that I have choices to make, and then as a consequence of those choices, there will be outcomes, and I have to live by them. I do not believe that outcome is predetermined by some deity. That's my interpretation of your question. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Are you trying to shout back to us what our thoughts are? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm
just
saying
trying
you're asking me a question. If you're having to have a discussion, that means we have a differing opinions. If we do not, then there is nothing to talk about. But if there,
do you think that libertarian free will is true? That's what we're talking about. Nothing to do with God's yet. I mean, it could. It just
God doesn't come into the equation.
Yes, I don't believe there is any God to begin with, so there is nothing to consider.
Then it sounds back to where we were.
Right. It sounds like what you're saying is that if presented with a glass of orange juice or a glass of lemonade, you go through some internal process as to consciously picking one cup over the other. And if somehow it were possible to rewind absolutely everything to that point where you were given that choice, you could pick the other glass. Is that what you think?
Kinda. If I made a choice, pick one over the other, and then as a result, there was a negative consequence, and I was given a choice to rewind and had that experience still in my consciousness. Then
you're assuming that the knowledge comes with you. The knowledge of that experience doesn't come. Yeah, it doesn't come with you. It's like literally stopping a movie halfway through. Okay, if we stop Lord of the Rings halfway through the first movie and rewind it, like the actors still go through everything, right? And none of the characters in the movie have any knowledge of what happens later on. Like technically the story's already written. We already know, spoilers for anybody that apparently hasn't figured this out yet, but we already know that Frodo throws the ring into the fires of Mount Doom. We know that happens, but none of the characters do in the first book because it hasn't happened in the timeline. And if you go to the last book and you read the last chapter, you'll go, my gosh, that's how it ends. But then when you go back into the book, into the first one, and you read it, all the stuff still happens the same. So that's what we're saying is you're the character in the book, and you can't go to chapter 12 and have knowledge of it. You're still on chapter 1. And in chapter 1, this is what you do.
You won't be engaging with our argument. Just real quick, Alan, I'm sorry. I know I want you to respond, but just real quick. You won't be engaging with the argument if you just don't engage with the argument. We're setting it very specifically. We are holding everything fixed. That's important. When you make this having the knowledge, now it's no longer fixed. We're talking about the exact same things fixed, right? Same exact.
So your example of that book and movie is incorrect because none of the actors wrote that. Some other third person, the author of the book.
It's an analogy. It's an analogy.
But look, it's it's not a complete analogy. That's why
it fails. The analogy actually fails because we don't know what happens in the future. And in a story like Lord of the Rings, we do, but all analogies break down at some point. But again, it'd be phenomenal.
I agree, but
hang on. It'd be phenomenal, Alan, if you could engage with what we are saying.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I am going to throw, hang on. I know I know what you're trying. I know what you're doing. I get it, man. Okay. But we're going to start all over again. We're just going to rewind that clock. JMike, what is that question that you would like to pose to our awesome caller, Alan, no pronouns given, from Texas? JMike, go ahead. And then Alan, we will unmute you. You'll hear a beep and you will be able to respond. So what you got, JMike?
Well, we'll start it this way. When you chose A over B, is there something that explains why you chose A over B, or is there no explanation for why you chose over A over B? Let's just start with the true dichotomy.
And you are back on. I'm sure you're hearing a beep. Go ahead.
Okay, that depends. If your question has to do with, say, I'm an engineer. If that question has to do with an engineering solution, then yes, I have a host of previous experiences I can draw from. But if your question is regarding orange juice,
the question was, is there an explanation for why you pick up A over B? That's all the question is. Is there an explanation, or is there no explanation?
Yes.
Okay, great.
In my scenario,
great. So I'm just trying to see on which side of the true dichotomy that you're on. Explanation for picking A over B, no explanation for picking up A or B. We've ruled out the indeterministic kind of concerns. Now, what I'm saying is you're on the side of determinism, right? Because if there's something that explains why you chose that, and we go back to the exact events, all of the same factors are the same. All the prior conditions are the same. Nothing has changed. What you want to say is that you can break this causal chain, like just yourself as an agent, break all of this massive causal chain of explanations behind you, and just break it and say, I have the author to just, do this, and now I've broken the explanatory, the explanation for those causes, right? That's the view you would have to opt for. Whereas when we have this causal history, you're going to get the exact outcome that you get because the thing prior is going to explain the outcome. It's not like as if in some other possible world you get a different outcome. You get the same outcome. Do you understand?
Okay, so I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to understand what you're asking. If what you're saying is I work in the computer world. Let me make an analogy to a computer world. When you boot up your computer, there's something called a ROM, a BIOS. It's a predetermined program. That sequence, you have no choice. Once you power up your computer, it follows that pre-programmed steps. But once you load your program, say operating system, and then you have some application, then that application has choices. So that's what I'm looking at. If your previous experiences is always the same, your initial starting point would be the same.
It doesn't have choices. There's antecedent factors prior that prompt the change.
Okay, so what you're talking about is in the computer
that's
analogy,
the thesis of determinism. If there's some antecedent thing that determines the subsequent thing, that's determinism.
Yeah.
Right? It determines the action.
I'm not following.
If a domino, just think of it like a domino, right? If the domino hits the next domino, we roll back to the second domino, and we want to say, like, could the second domino have just not got knocked over and fell? Well, the antecedent, when we look at that situation fixed, the thing that's fixed in that situation is the first domino hitting it. It's not as if it's going to produce the second outcome. It's not like the domino could just be like, nope, I'm going to break the chain. All of this stuff is fixed. It's going to produce the same result. You'd have to give some argument that agents and brains, for some reason, can just break this causal chain and just make like free decisions that aren't fully determined by the antecedent factors prior to their decision. But that seems strange, right? Because like clearly you didn't go shopping for your brain, right? You didn't go to the store and shop for your brain. You didn't like pick which genes were expressed, your parents. right? All of that stuff, it seems like the window for that ability to choose otherwise just gets dwindlingly smaller, right? Gets tinier and tinier. So I guess I would just ask you, if you have antecedent factors that are determining it, where does the free will sneak itself in, right? How does that work?
Okay, so talking about your gene analogy, there is no guarantee that just because I have a certain cancer gene that I would get it. Environmental factor plays into that. There are random events that play into it. So if you keep all of those the
determined by the environment?
Yeah, randomness doesn't help your cause for free will, though, because free will has to be an agent that is able to break that chain, just like JMike is talking about. And if you're granting that there is a chain, and then what happens is that just random shit just occurs every so often, bro, that doesn't give you the agency that you're going for when you say free will exists. And you're in a lot of your responses, it's been really interesting because you've been responding with things that do very much seem to be determined. And then you're just saying, but there's choice. And you're just kind of like throwing it in there. Like, and that's what we're trying to say is that, so like my way of going about this would be saying like, well, hey, how do you actually demonstrate that free will exists? And it sounds like what you would say to me is, and could be totally wrong. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it sounds like what you would say to me is, well, we just experience free will. Well, it just seems to be all around us. And that's not actually a demonstration of it. And again, like I just said, every time you've responded to JMike, you've actually responded with things that are determined. Like you mentioned a computer booting up and the fact that it just has this code in it that it can't do otherwise but follow the pattern. And it's like, yeah, man, that's what we're saying. Like, so
yes,
yeah.
At some point, then your application takes over, and that's the free will. Once the application takes over, then you exercise free will.
You think computers have intentional states and they're exercising free will? That's your view? That's what you think?
At some point, yes. Yes, that's the whole notion of AI. Why do you think they're so concerned of AI? Because at some point,
AI is not about free will. Yeah, AI is not about free will. AI is about bringing a massive amount of data into an item that we have created specifically. Hang on, stop. All AI has to, as a base, have information put into it. That's why there are currently people all over the world taking about 60 to 90 seconds to stare into a silver ball right now to receive cryptocurrency, is so that they can train the AI on what human eyeballs look like to determine people from non-people. So that just is definitely the case, man. Like, and if you're trying to say that AI demonstrates free will, my only response to that is going to be basically the same thing we've been saying, which it seems like the reason that AI gives any particular response is because of a particular prompt. And even before that, because of the information that it had available to it to begin with. All of this seems to follow a causal chain like JMike was talking about. So again, where in this chain of events do we get this agency that now has the ability to, I don't know, access information it never had before or come up with a different response to this prompt? Where in this chain is that agency that you're talking about?
Okay, so we are talking about a bunch of things and we're mixing about. Okay, we have to start from certain initial state. If I were not born, I would not be calling your show, correct? So the fact that I was born enables me to make this phone call. So if I have never been born, I would definitely not be making this call. Now, could I have been born and not made a choice to make this call? Yes. That's my free will.
There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is, Alan. You just did the thing that we've been saying the whole freaking time. You're like, it's like as if JMike were having a conversation and I said, hey, JMike, did you know that chocolate ice cream is objectively better than vanilla? And JMike goes, oh, no, gosh, I didn't know that, SR. What's your reasoning for that? And I said, well, see, JMike, ice cream is a particular substance that is oftentimes, but not exclusively, made from frozen milk of some variety. And adding chocolate to that changes not only the flavor and texture, but the color sometimes as well. And chocolate's better. I gave no explanation for the chocolate being better. I just freaking said it.
You just filled in some space and then restated the claim.
Exactly. Exactly.
So let's just try this in action. Alan, think of a city right now. And then tell me what it is.
We got you unmuted, Alan.
Okay.
Think of a
the
city.
Response. Okay, I hear the bit. Your example of chocolate was not an.
Well, I just want to ask you because we got other callers, and so let's just try this simple. Let's just try this as simply as we can. Think of a city, and then tell me what city comes to mind.
Back on with us, Alan.
San Francisco.
Okay, why wasn't it Paris?
You asked me. I told you my choice.
Did you choose that, or did you recognize it and then report it to me?
I don't follow the question. Could you explain?
Did you seriously did you seriously like just pick that, or did you notice the thought come into your head? Did you author San Francisco? Did you really choose that, or did you notice the thought?
I don't follow. You ask a question.
Think of another. Give me another city. Give me another city.
Why I didn't give you another?
Give me another city.
Yeah, that's the point.
Vancouver, Canada.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Did you again when that came up? Did the thought come up and then you reported it to me? Right. You're like trying to say that you think your thoughts before you think your thoughts, right? Like the thought comes about and then you report that thought.
Oh, there's a mechanical thing that happens in my brain, and that results into some
that determines the choice of the city that I asked you to choose a city. It determined the city. Both times it did.
Was choose a city. Yes, your question was choose a city. Now, why I chose those cities, we can talk about it. But why didn't I choose Paris is not part of your question. You said choose a city.
That's fine. Let's just stick with the first thing. If that's what you're really concerned about, that's fine. You gave me the answer that there was antecedent factors that determined it. Great. Welcome to determinism.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if that's your thesis, that's great. But we could do what SR and I were trying to get you to do which is give the actual account. But when we did that, you would just restate the claim. So I'm just trying to now just demonstrate
if you're asking me how I came to that question, to that answer, that's a different question. Your initial question was, give me a city, and I gave you a city.
Yes, and then we moved on from that very, very easy thing, okay? Okay, here's what we did, Alan. JMike said, let's take 5 seconds to walk through this together, to demonstrate this together. And one of the ways that he's trying to do that is by going through a thought experiment. That thought experiment being, let's take an easy decision that seems to just be right in front of all of us, seems to be super duper easy. Let's just think of any random city in the world. There's freaking thousands of them. And after we make that decision with air quotes, all we're doing is going to the very next step, which is trying to give an accounting for that decision. And what we're saying is, hey, when you look at that, it kind of seems like there isn't really an explanation there. It kind of more seems like instead of you sitting down and having this thought process in your head where you battle back and forth between different cities and maybe Paris, France is going to win. Maybe it's San Francisco. Maybe it's New York. But no, in reality, what happened is more along the lines of the thought just popped into your head somewhere out of seemingly black void. And then you just relayed that thought to us. And then when we say, hey, so where's the free will in there? Your response is, well, it just is. Does that help clarify any of this?
No, because you didn't ask me how I came to that decision.
Well, that's
My
okay.
brain made certain.
That's okay. That's okay. So we'll let you go for this time, and we'll, you know, call us back in the future, Alan. Please. I really feel like we walked through that really well. That I think is one of the best kind of, you know, thought experiments to play with. That was one of the things that helped me start going down this path. It's not something I think that I'm letting you go, by the way, Alan. So thank you so much for giving us a call. And
it's
I
not
do
really
hope
my go-to, but it's like, this isn't working. So let me try.
Yeah, I like that one just because I think it's a really good starting place.
Yeah,
I don't think that is the answer. But like, I think that when you really sit down and wrestle with that concept, it does put you in this boat of being like, oh, shoot, I actually really don't know how I came to that conclusion. And then you have to go think a little bit further about it. I know this was something that
I Googled something the other day, and like in my head, I don't know if this really applies or not, but like, I just do stuff where it's like, I can almost sometimes see this separation. Like I wanted to Google something the other day, and somehow I found myself in Google. What I typed was snowball. I was like, what the? What has nothing to do with what? So I don't know. There's just times where I'm just like, it's not that hard for me to grasp it. Maybe I just have a weird brain or something. But there's things like, you know, there's this like first order kind of second order thing going on, and I'm a victim of just noticing myself. Like, wow, that's pay attention.
Yeah,
in whatever sense that, you know, that means. But yeah,
it's a dense topic, and I remember the first time I ever, you know, started touching on the subject. I remember whoever I was listening to was like, hey, if this is giving you like existential dread, just put it down for a while and come back to it, or don't. And I think I did.